AI is an effective tool, an accelerator, an amplifier. But the key factors and decisions required intuition, judgment, historical perspective, and sound decision making. Hello again. Welcome to The Ruthless Truth. I am your host, Truth Davis. In this forum, I share opinions, thoughts, truths on a wide variety of topics based on what I believe to be a unique life experience. And you can read more about that in the profile or the notes. My intent is to share stories, experiences, and hopefully provide some life and career lessons that will assist you in your journey. Please follow me on Instagram at TruthDavis5. Subscribe to the YouTube channel Ruthless Truth, and there's also a Facebook page, Ruthless Truth. General format, I'll share some thoughts or comments on current news. Then there'll be one subject that I'll go deeper on, which will be today's truth. And then I like to end with an American history fun fact. Okay, hope everyone had a wonderful 4th of July weekend. A lot was happening. Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce got married in Madison Square Garden, officiated by Adam Sandler. Oh, it was quite the event, held at the theater at the Garden, A-list celebrity attendees. There was much discussion on social media about the guests, the food, the clothes, the extravagance. And I gotta admit, I was a bit surprised by the extensive coverage and feedback because, quite frankly, I don't think I could have cared less. Look, in general, I think weddings are way overrated. But a wedding between people I don't know? Whatever. That said, I didn't understand why so many people felt the need to take personal shots at Taylor Swift. You don't have to be a fan, but the hate is unnecessary. I guess nowadays people will hate on anything. As for the holiday, I did have family visiting, so I had the grill fired up Friday and Saturday. And I got to tell you, I was shocked at the price of burgers and steak. After returning from the grocery store, I looked it up and learned that beef prices today are currently at the highest price ever, with ground beef at $6.75 per pound and steak at an average of $12 per pound. This is up 16% versus just the same time last year. So, what's driving up the high prices of beef? Well, first, U.S. cattle inventory is at its lowest level since the 1950s. Years of severe drought in the cattle belt and inflated costs for feed and fertilizer have forced many ranchers to just cull their herd rather than rebuild. And because it takes a calf almost 2 years to grow to market weight, prices are going to remain high for at least another 18 months. But the demand for steak continues to run high. So this is a classic case of supply and demand resulting in high prices. And I guess I can't ignore the biggest news of the week. The U.S. launched retaliatory airstrikes against Iran in response of Iran targeting commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz, thus violating the ceasefire. And so it goes on and on. Okay, finally, the U.S. men's national team made it to the round of 16 in the World Cup. Unfortunately, they fell to Belgium by a score of 4-1, but we still celebrate their deep run into the tournament. That has been exciting for everyone involved. Okay, let's get to today's truth. Today's truth. I was recently having a debate, and in the midst of the debate, I said, well, look, I'm no marketing expert. But then I caught myself and remembered, wait a minute, yes, I am. I have 2 degrees in marketing. Subsequently, I spent 30 years in corporate marketing, and by all accounts, humbly, had a fairly successful career. I launched the Can You Hear Me Now campaign for Verizon Wireless. I was the first ever, and still only ever, chief marketing officer for Comcast, and the first brand campaign I launched for that company was voted Best National TV Advertising Campaign of the Year. And finally, I helped build a small startup company into the global leader in identity theft, known as LifeLock. So, I am a passionate marketing expert, and I get really fired up when I hear the latest alarms about the end of marketing. So in today's truth, I will explain why AI is not the death of marketing or great marketing careers. However, AI might mean the death of bad marketers. Okay, first, over the past 100 years, there have been many advances in technology that led to the heightened fears of marketing's demise. For every new innovation, business experts would boldly claim that marketing was in trouble. And every time, those experts have been wrong. And you know why? Because they weren't marketers. They didn't understand the critical factors of marketing. So they were basically just talking out their ass. They often were narrowly focused on media or the delivery of marketing messages versus the actual content of the messages. And I'll discuss this more in a few minutes. So I'm going to break this conversation into 2 parts. First, I'll quickly review the history of technology and how there was initially panic that later was addressed. Then, most importantly, I will explain the key factors and skills that make a great marketer. And you will then understand why technology is not a threat to great marketers. Okay, so when radio was introduced in the 1920s, followed by television in the 1940s, there was panic in the marketing communities. Because until that time, advertising was delivered via print in either newspapers, magazines, or billboards. Business people feared print would become obsolete. But advertisers adjusted their approach to print advertising, evolving from dense, text-heavy copy into highly visual, narrative-driven, and experimental formats. Advertisers shifted focus away from merely listing product features and began using narrative storytelling, humor, and sleek design layouts to evoke lifestyle aspirations and deep emotional responses. Then, in the 1980s, the VCR came into existence, and there would be fears that it would be the end of TV advertising, as consumers could now fast forward past commercials of recorded programs. Even more concerning, the VCR was seen as a threat to appointment viewing. Where advertisers relied on large audiences watching popular programs at a scheduled time. The industry referred to it as time shifting. And advertisers now questioned the validity of TV ratings, as they may now be paying for presumably live viewers, but who actually watched at a different time. So did this kill TV advertising? Well, of course, you all know it didn't. So what happened? Well, as always, marketers adapted and evolved. Marketers pursued product placement, where the product was baked into the plot of the TV show. They also began speed-proofing their ads by designing commercials with large, bold, and static brand logos that centered on the screen. Even when fast-forwarded, the viewer would still subconsciously register their brand logo that was zipping past. Additionally, brands began placing unskippable commercials at the very beginning of rented or purchased Hollywood VHS tapes, before the movie started. And then finally, in the 2000s and 2010s, advertisers were freaking out because the oh so coveted demographic of 18 to 34-year-old males were spending more time playing video games than watching TV. So how would the industry reach them now? During the NBA All-Star Game week in 2004, I was part of a panel discussion moderated by media legend Larry King. The panel consisted of leaders from various industries, including the McDonald's CMO and also the late Stuart Scott, who was a famous ESPN personality at the time. But the very first question of the panel came to me, and Larry King just spins around, looks at me and says, "Marvin, where are the boys and how will you reach them?" And I said then what I say now. I know where the boys are, and successfully reaching them is what will separate good marketers from former marketers. Advertisers developed in-game ads, and some even created original content centered around their brands. Additionally, gaming platforms offer highly detailed analytics and real-time behavioral metrics. And so this direct feedback allowed advertisers to target specific cohorts more efficiently than traditional TV ratings could. So, historically, every time the latest technological innovation emerged, pundits predicted the doom and downfall for marketers, but it never happened. And now we have the latest boogeyman, artificial intelligence, or AI. I keep reading about how AI will replace up to 3 out of 5 marketing positions, and that machines will be able to perform marketing tasks previously done by humans. Now, I will concede that AI will reduce or eliminate some marketing roles, especially those related to marketing analytics, research, media targeting, and ad placement. Anthropic, the software company behind Claude AI, recently projected that up to 65% of all marketing jobs will be eliminated by artificial intelligence. This infuriates me. Again, these projections are made by people who don't understand marketing and think it's just number crunching, creative development, and media services. But there's so much more to marketing than this. And the most critical and business impacting elements of marketing still need to be performed by people. So let's look at some of the key marketing skills and roles that can't be replaced. Now, on the surface, market research seems like an obvious role that AI can assume. AI can much more quickly deploy research, analyze the findings, and report on the conclusions. But how does it know what needs to be researched? How will it determine the questions that need to be asked? There are a lot of business executives who really don't believe in marketing research. And their favorite all-time argument is, if Henry Ford had done market research, people would have asked for a faster horse, not a car. Okay, now every time someone has said this to me, and which has been often, I respond, then that was just a bad researcher. You don't ask people to tell you the product they need. You try to find out what is dissatisfying them today and what would better satisfy them with a different solution. A good researcher would have asked someone in the 1800s, "What do you most dislike about riding the horse into town?" And they go, "You know what? I hate how long it takes to get there. And I really don't like it when it's raining because my clothes get wet and muddy." And sometimes it's hard to control the horse when he has a mind of his own, or he gets tired and needs to stop. And you know what? Also, it's a quiet and lonely experience because my wife can't ride with me or has to have her own horse or carriage. Okay, that's the type of feedback a good researcher would get. And now you have the information to start working on a solution for these problems, and the solution was the automobile. Now, this leads to the most critical marketing role that would be hard to replace, and that is product marketing. Many marketing jobs are basically support functions for the product marketer. The product marketer sits at the intersection of manufacturing, research, finance, and sales. Their primary job, the product marketer, is to translate complex product features into compelling value propositions, ensuring the right audience understands how the product solves their specific problems. This requires a human. You know, Red Lobster is currently in the midst of one of the greatest company and marketing comebacks in recent history. Just in May of 2024, the company filed for bankruptcy. But since then, led by their new 37-year-old CEO, Damola Adamalinken, the company is experiencing a resurgence and serves as a shining example of what AI can and cannot do. Now, some of the company's needs were obvious, okay? They needed to reduce costs, increase efficiency. So, they closed some unprofitable locations and they looked to simplify their menu. But Mr. Adamalinken appropriately deploys artificial intelligence for automated labor scheduling, supply chain cost management, and predictive inventory forecasting to eliminate hidden operational costs. But unquestionably, the greatest impact has been in marketing. The brand strategy was to focus on the nostalgia of one of America's favorite restaurant brands. And under his leadership, the company has leaned heavily into fan favorites. Hush puppies and popcorn shrimp returned to the menus. Seafood boils became a social media hit, and the chain introduced value-focused promotions, happy hour specials, and $20 lobster rolls. This is a great example of how AI is an effective tool, an accelerator, an amplifier. But the key factors and decisions required intuition, judgment, historical perspective, and sound decision making. This leads to my final skill that cannot be displaced by AI, and that's strategy development and communication. In episode 6 of The Ruthless Truth, I explain and discuss the true meaning of strategy, as most people can't accurately define it. And I emphasize that the most important word in the definition of strategy is the word choice. How will we choose to compete? What will we choose to do? What will we choose not to do? You can have all the analytics and research in the world, but at the end of the day, someone has to make a decision and be accountable for it. AI can't do that. But no matter how brilliant your ideas and strategies are, you still have to convince people to support it and to execute it. Mr. Adamalinken had to make a compelling pitch to the investor group RL Holdings for them to agree to invest $60 million to support his plan. So coming up with a great strategy and plan is not enough. Pitching and selling it is just as important, if not more so. Okay, let me wrap this up. First, there is no denying that AI technology will disrupt the marketing function and render some historical jobs as limited, if not unnecessary. It is rapidly automating and reshaping tactical, execution-heavy tasks. Additionally, jobs built around setup, repetitive production, and low judgment execution are feeling the heaviest pressure. Included in this group are junior content creators, media buyers, data analysts, and researchers. Historically, these were entry-level positions. So, if entry-level positions are being eliminated, what is the path to middle and senior positions where the previously discussed skills are so valued? Well, I have a couple of thoughts on this. First, and it truly pains me to say this, marketing degrees are quickly losing value, so I don't recommend pursuing one unless it carries a strong technological component such as AI development and management. But you can still develop and cultivate key marketing skills in financial management, data analytics, or retail and hospitality management. Jobs in these industries can provide real-world, customer-facing experience that can later be leveraged into marketing leadership roles. If you are currently well into your career, much of the same applies. The most valued skills will continue to be leadership, strategy development, creative problem solving, technical expertise, and persuasive selling. If your current role does not provide you with the opportunity to develop and display these skills, well, then seek and ask for a new role or responsibility that will give you the opportunity. And if it's not available with your current employer, you may need to look at making a change. Bottom line, the skills I discussed here will always be valued. If you have career ambitions, you need to chart a path to attain and develop these types of skills. Okay, let's get to today's American history fun fact. Okay, given the length of today's truth, today's history segment will be somewhat brief. Now, as any regular listener of the Ruthless Truth knows, I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee, specifically the historic neighborhood of Orange Mound. But Atlanta has become my adoptive home as I've lived there 5 separate times, beginning at age 18. And this most recent stint is the longest, having now reached 13 consecutive years. So obviously, I really like Atlanta. Well, in today's American History Fun Fact, I will tell you about an Atlanta institution recognized as the world's largest drive-in restaurant. Okay, let's start at the beginning. Walter Frank Gordy was born on February 9, 1904 in Upson County, Georgia. He graduated from Reinhardt University before beginning graduate studies at Georgia Tech, but he dropped out of Tech in 1925. Then, in 1928, with a $1,900 nest egg, Frank Gordy leased a house at 55 North Avenue in Atlanta and constructed a small brick building in its front yard. Gordy felt he could take advantage of the foot traffic from the trolley stop at Peachtree Street and North Avenue. So the 14 by 35 foot building had a 6-stool counter and a walk-up window. Gordy named his new restaurant the Yellow Jacket, which is the Georgia Tech mascot. And the day the Yellow Jacket opened its doors, it served about 300 customers. So as the business grew, Gordy was forced to move the restaurant to 61 North Avenue, which is on the northwest corner of Spring Street, which is right near the highway in Georgia. And he did this because he needed more room. And so to accommodate the crowds, he built it out to cover 2 city blocks. And with his eye on the future, he renamed his restaurant the Varsity, theorizing that he would eventually expand to every college campus. The restaurant's menu centered around 100% beef hot dogs, burgers, which were called steaks, fresh sides, most notably fries and onion rings, and the signature orange frosted drink. And for dessert, you could have a fried pie with either peach or apple filling. The Varsity developed its own culture and lingo. Key components of the culture were the car hops, who serviced the drive-in customers. In 1937, John Wesley Rayford began working at the Varsity as a car hop, learning quickly that to earn good tips, A car hop had to stand out. His flamboyant mannerisms prompted a customer to call him Flossie, and he began calling himself Flossie May. And he worked at the restaurant for 56 years. In the 1940s, before he became a famous comedian and TV star, Nipsey Russell worked as car hop number 46. He was famous for his flamboyant style, jokes, and for coining the varsity term naked dog, which means just a plain hot dog. Well, by the 1950s, the Varsity was known as the world's largest drive-in restaurant. The phrase, "meet me at the Varsity," was catching on. The Varsity parking lot was not just a place to come to get food, but it was somewhere to hang out, socialize, and to take dates. And being a car hop at the Varsity was a coveted job. And during this time, nearly 130 car hops were employed. The restaurant continued to thrive for decades, known for its question, "What do you have? What do you have? What do you have?" The legendary fast-paced greeting given to every customer. U.S. presidents who have visited Varsity while in office include Jimmy Carter, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and Donald Trump. In 1996, the Varsity stated that it served over 5,000 fried fruit pies, 2 miles of hot dogs, 300 gallons of chili, 2,500 pounds of potatoes, and 2,000 pounds of onions every single day. It also described itself as the largest seller of Coca-Cola in the world. Today, the Varsity is as popular as ever. Now, I know there's a lot to do and see when you visit Atlanta, but your visit is not complete without at least one stop at the Varsity. As we say locally, it's the best grease in town. Okay, that's all I have for you today on The Ruthless Truth. Thank you so much for listening. Again, follow me on Instagram at TruthDavis5. Subscribe to The Ruthless Truth channel on YouTube. And there's also a Facebook page, Ruthless Truth. I invite everyone to review past episodes. They cover a wide range of topics. I'm sure you'll find something that is helpful. And if you have comments, please let me know. Again, thank you for listening, and I will talk to all of you soon.